I just wanted to pop in shortly to say, to just announce this fantastic video that Ilaria Boncori and Joe Brewis have made about their fascinating and very new project on early pregnancy endings in the workplace. So over to you, girls.
Thanks, Nella. Hi. Hi, everybody else. Thanks so much for staying with us. This is a project involving Ela and I and lots of other people, actually. The survey for which finally went live at the end of last week. So there's a video to introduce the project. It's not very long, 12 minutes or so. And if you wouldn't mind putting questions in the chat box during the video, we'll do our best to answer them. Hello everybody, my name's Jo Brewis and I work at the Open University Business School, and I'm here with Ilaria Boncori from the University of Essex to talk about our early pregnancy endings and the workplace project. We are also working with Pam Lowe and Killian Mullen from Aston University, Julie Davies from UCL and the Open University, Amy Middlemiss from the LSE and the Open University, and Victoria Newton from the Open University. We're also very lucky to have two third sector partners. So we're working with the British Pregnancy Advisory Service and also Abortion Rights. And this project is funded by the Open University Impact Acceleration Award. First of all, I'm going to ask Ilaria, can you tell us what the project's about?
Thank you. Yes, so the project is about early pregnancy endings, which includes termination, miscarriage, ectopic and molar pregnancies. By early pregnancy endings and the experience in the workplace, we understand within the first 24 weeks gestation. This is a very common experience, although very frequently it's not actually reported medically and is not included in official statistics. That's why some of the statistics vary. It's often belittled or ignored both socially and in the workplace. And it's an experience that is given less legal protection and support from organizations that, and also, general government policy than experiences that happen after 24-week gestation. Also, we want to focus on individuals who've had this experience in terms of one or more early pregnancy endings, including recurring miscarriage and their experience specifically in the workplace. So we want to understand the impact that early pregnancy endings have on their everyday work lives, on their career progression, the support they receive, or the lack thereof, in and from organizations. So our data collection also includes different professional contexts, different hierarchical levels and types of contracts, because we really wanted to get a broad understanding of not just one particular group of people, but of people who experience this in the workplace in general. So we're going to look at key issues around support, so policies, leave entitlement, line management, issues around disclosure, confidentiality and agency, but also relationships with peers, subordinates, and superiors. And that also will include professional development. So, Jo, can you tell us why this study is important?
The project is important because the discipline that both Ilaria and I come from, which is studies of organisation and studies of management, pays very little attention to the experiences of miscarriage or termination, even though, as Ilaria has pointed out, they're actually extremely common. So we have scanned the organisation studies and management studies literature, and we've been able to find one study on navigating termination while you're in paid employment. And I think we found about 7 or 8 on miscarriage as an experience that working women have to navigate. However, when you compare that very small number of studies to the much larger number of studies on, for example, pregnancy or even menopause, which lots of researchers, including myself, are looking at in the current climate, it's a very, very small amount of literature. So these experiences are not widely covered in those disciplines, and as a result, they're not widely understood. However, we've got a slightly different picture in popular media. So we've seen many celebrities actually coming out recently and sharing stories about their own miscarriages in particular. Myling Klass comes to mind. And there's also some attention being paid in workplace policy. So, for example, TSB are going to be introducing miscarriage leave later this year for their employees. We also know that the City of Portland government in Oregon in the US have introduced this kind of leave. And there are 2 bills making their way through the House of Commons at the moment, one of which is asking that the bereavement leave, the fortnight of bereavement leave that parents who go through miscarriage experience are entitled to, be extended to cover pregnancies that end before 24 weeks. So in other words, these early pregnancy endings that this project focuses on. Another one has a slightly different emphasis. So that is also asking for paid leave, but it's saying that 3 days paid leave should be automatically available to parents who experience miscarriage. That said, none of these policies or bills, as far as we're aware, pay any attention to termination. So we wanted to include that as a form of early pregnancy ending to widen our focus. So, Ilaria, could you tell us what's innovative about the project?
This project is innovative in many ways. First of all, because as you mentioned, there are limited investigations in management and organizational studies of this topic. Probably because pregnancy endings bring together the taboo subjects of women's leaky bodies and death, which don't quite fit with the antiquated yet still very pervasive masculine ideal of the disembodied worker whose workplace life is separate from the personal life. These experiences are actually inextricably intertwined, and being professional does not need to imply a rejection of the personal lived experience. So we believe that organizations must not only acknowledge bodily experiences, but such as pregnancy, miscarriage, menopause, but also ensure that policies, support, and training are available to provide enabling work environments. Another innovative aspect of this study is its interdisciplinary approach. So in our team, there is expertise in management, sociology, health, and social care. And so we bring different perspectives, approaches, experiences, and knowledge to this project in order to develop rich and nuanced understandings of early pregnancy endings in the workplace. The project is also innovative because we took an inclusive approach to early pregnancy endings. In terms of our participants, because we include all women, not just those who were assigned female gender at birth, but also in our definition of early pregnancy endings, because as you mentioned, we include termination and abortion, as well as miscarriage, ectopic, and molar pregnancies, which are often studied separately, but might have some similarities and interesting dynamics. Also, finally, in terms of data collection, we decided to conduct a large-scale academic survey on the experience of early pregnancy endings and work in the UK, which we believe is the first of its kind, and it's a quantitative survey that also includes open questions. So in terms of our study, can you tell us a little bit about who can take part in this study and how?
Yes, so as Ilaria has mentioned, our survey is gender inclusive, so it is open to anybody of any gender or who doesn't identify as having a particular gender who has experienced either a termination or a miscarriage before the gestation period of 24 weeks of pregnancy. And therefore, if you've had those experiences and you were working at the time, we really would be delighted if you would take part in the survey to help us expand our knowledge and awareness of this really important set of experiences, and also to be able to base recommendations and our conclusions on lived experience. Okay, and this is also why we wanted to run a survey, because we wanted to reach as many people as possible. At the moment, the survey is limited to people who live or work in one of the UK's 4 nations, so England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. And we've done that because although we know those countries are culturally variable and there are slightly different legislative frameworks in each of the countries, they are similar enough to allow us hopefully to do a little bit of generalizing from the data. And as we finish the podcast today, we'll put up a link to the survey for anyone who's interested in taking part. And I should also emphasize that you can take part no matter when you had one of these experiences. It could have been decades ago, it could have been very recently. We're still really interested to hear from you. So finally, Ilaria, how are we going to disseminate our knowledge from the project?
We will employ different ways to disseminate the study. So first of all, we're collaborating, as you mentioned, with third sector organizations, and we'll continue to do so throughout the project, so namely with the British Pregnancy Advisory Service and abortion rights. So there is really an iterative and multi-directional exchange of knowledge and expertise between academics and professionals who are experts in these experiences and in supporting individuals who go through early pregnancy endings. We will also have a large dissemination event at the end of the project when we will share our findings. We'll produce some practical guidelines for organizations on the experience of early pregnancy endings in the workplace to support them in the development of their own support mechanisms, their types of policies, issues, and support that they should be aware of and cater for. We've also created a website, as you mentioned, to introduce the project, and there will be a link at the end of this presentation, and people can take part in the survey, and we will also use the website to disseminate our findings. We also plan to deliver seminars and talks, for example, academic conferences. We will be presenting at Gender Working Organization this summer, university groups, but also non-academic talks for other audiences and to reach members of the public who may be interested in this topic. And finally, we will also work on academic publications for international peer-reviewed journals and other articles aimed at more general media outlets.
So the slide that's coming up now has a link to our project website, which Ilaria has just mentioned. It also has a link to the dedicated project email address, and of course a link to the survey. So please do get in touch on the email address if you've got any queries at all about the project. Really encourage anybody who's had one of these experiences to complete the survey. And very shortly, you're also going to have the opportunity to ask us questions live. Thank you so much for watching us today, and we hope you found this interesting.
I just wanted to, well, obviously, thank you both for recording this webcast. It was such a pleasure to hear more about your project, and just to draw your attention to the fact that we have a longer Q&A, so because your video is slightly shorter. So I'll just encourage people to either engage via mic or type in their questions in the chat box, and maybe we can break away at past and have a slightly longer break, unless people are really chatty, which would also be lovely. Yeah. So do you, Joe, want to read questions, or do you want me to read it? What would be easier for you?
I think we can probably do it between us, Nels. Thank you. But thank you for the offer. So thanks so much, everybody, for listening to that. My Wi-Fi is so spotty that the video froze about 1 million times. So I hope it wasn't the same at your end. I think it's not coping very well with the webcam and the video at the same time. So we've got 2 questions in the chat box so far. One of them is from Nella. And she says, when you mentioned your project, I was surprised to hear that early pregnancy endings are still seldom talked about and researched from a sociological perspective, despite them being so common. Why is this, do you think? So if I take that first, then hand to you, Ela.
Sure.
So actually, there is an enormous amount of literature on the experience of both miscarriages, including ectopic and molar pregnancies, and terminations. It's just that almost none of it is in management and organisation studies. So what you find is that there are journal papers and also book-length treatments of these experiences. I'm going all the way back to probably preceding Emily Martin, The Woman in the Body, which was published in the late 80s and is still highly recommended as a brilliant text on women's bodies. But what you get in that coverage, in that literature, are kind of flash references to work. So some of the data might talk about workplace experiences. There might be a section or 2 on work, but there isn't that detailed treatment of what it's like to navigate an early pregnancy ending when you're in paid employment. So this really is part of what sparked our interest. And the people that we've got on the team, so Ilaria has in fact written one of the very few papers on miscarriage as a workplace issue. We've also got Amy Middlemiss, who did her PhD on miscarriage, ectopic and molar pregnancies, and that has some data about work, but again wasn't focused on it. And then we have Victoria Newton and, let me remember, menopause, Pamela, who are experts, academic experts on termination, but not so much from a workplace angle. And then we've got Killian, who's our quants jock, and Julie Davies, who is generally interested in what she calls decent work, which is really at the heart of the study. So I think the point to make is that there is a lot of social science about these, almost nothing in management and organisation studies, despite probably now 2 or 3 decades of stuff on things like pregnancy. So anything to add to that, Ela?
No, I think you covered it, and it's just quite baffling that from an organizational point of view there is not much. And I think building on this, to follow up with Cynthia's question about using different methods rather than a survey. So the very few contributions we have at the moment tend to be more personal, like autoethnographic. So mine was an autoethnographic study that I published with Charlie Smith, and then, excuse the pronunciation of the names, but Emily Porschitz, I think you pronounce, and Elizabeth Seiler had a paper on this as well. And there is one whose author's name escapes me, but I remember it's called Waltzing Matilda, and I think it's based in Australia. That also was an autoethnographic study. So at the moment, I am also collaborating with Hamid Foroughi on another grant that focuses on miscarriage and stillbirth. And for that grant, we have conducted qualitative interviews, but it would be great to use more sort of arts-based methods, whether performative or visual or narrative. That would definitely enrich the study. And I think one of the things that we, as a team, with Joe and everyone else, considered is that this would be the first stage. So to gather like quantitative data, and then hopefully to follow up with more funding to look at other methods and different stories. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been absolutely hilarious actually putting the survey together, and part of the reason why it took us so long, is that all but Killian on the team, we're all qualitative researchers. So we just kept wanting to put these enormous open-ended qualitative questions on the survey. We kept having to pull ourselves back going, we'll do that next time, we'll do that next time. So the survey is a pilot study. We obviously want to get as much data as we can, because we feel that way we'll be able to make a really informed contribution to hopefully workplace policy, and also to the wider academic literature and kind of public awareness of these issues. But as I say, our predilections are definitely leaning towards the qualitative across the team. But as Ela says, we're hoping to be able to follow up with a bigger grant bid. We've done our way through the data. I should point out that if you scroll up, for those of you who aren't following the chat necessarily, we've also got a link there to the survey, the project website, and the email address if you want to get in touch. So another question from Astrid. Hi, Astrid. How lovely to have you on the call. It's been ages. So she says nice things about the project, which is great. She says, would you like to say a bit more about the theoretical frameworks that inspired you in this study? That is a really good question. Ela, do you want to take it or shall I?
Yeah, happy to start with. So to be honest, we were more hoping to get guided by the data. I had a bit of like a starter advantage in that I'd been already conducting the previous study. So we've been considering things like silencing and disclosure. We've been considering more kind of like HR type of frameworks of support and embodiment, and so I think at the moment we're keeping it quite open. But one thing I would say is that I can definitely see so many parallels with Vicky's presentation, and you know how, for example, one of the reasons why there isn't a lot of data on the early pregnancy endings is because a lot of people don't disclose it. It's also because there is a lot of belittling from the medical profession, and so there is a lot of kind of like dismissive behavior towards early pregnancy endings, and so you know we're hoping to have a range of options, both theoretically and empirically, to investigate.
Form is some form of understanding of intersectionality, because we're interested in similarities, but we're also interested in differences. So, you know, the survey is open to people of any gender or no gender at all, any age, any ethnicity, any religion, any occupation, and we really want to be able to tease out some of the differences between. I think the other thing that we really wanted to do was obviously termination in particular is still a really stigmatized experience. Miscarriage, ectopic is capture a range of experiences, and not necessarily to assume that any of these experiences, none of interested in the project, not necessarily to assume that these are somehow horrendous and distressing and really traumatic. We know that that's the case for a lot of people who go through them, but we want to capture that diversity of experience across the whole range, if you like. Thank you, Astrid. So Nella says, would you also like to say a bit more about your collab with others on the project? I love the fact that people come from different youth.
Really invaluable in putting together the questions and the study and in our conversations, and you know I think that's definitely a strength, and I've learned so much just having conversations with colleagues, and not just about quantity, but just on the perspective of even the questions and the design of the study. At the moment the study is on the 4 nations in the UK. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, kind of important experiences being shared, and we're so grateful for people's generosity in sharing these very personal and private experiences with us. But the way that we came together was actually Victoria Newton and I, maternity leave, had a conversation with and we came up with this one, and I knew Ela was doing work on miscarriage, so I reached out to her, and Victoria reached out to Pam, who's very familiar with as of reproductive experiences, but particular termination. She recruited Kellyanne to do the quants, and then we're lucky to be able to hire 2 associate lecturers, stroke consultants, and that school management schools type background, and then everyone else is sort of more or less sociologists, health scientists. And yes, it's been quite tense because we're so different. The way that we approach things, it's absolutely amazing. Event, which I think will probably happen in the new academic year now rather than this academic year. Hopefully, Nella. Yes, we're getting there. We're getting there. Right, it's 3 minutes to go. I think we thank you so much, everybody, for your interest. Oh, one more thing. Please share the survey link with your networks. That would be super helpful, because we really do any focus possible to take part.
And just if I may, we have added posts on Facebook and Twitter to promote this. So if you would kindly retweet us or promote in other ways, we'd be very grateful. Thank you.